Ois. So up till here, we explained in the previous Ois that the real Hamshocha of Sholom, of the Ein Sof in the world is through Matan Torah. The Matan Torah, the Asora, the time when the Gezerah was in this battle to make the Dira B'tachtonim to be able to bring godliness into the world. And now the Rebbe continues to explain how that level, this would be the level of Chol Banayich Limude Hashem V'Rav Shloim Banoich, in which the Yidden make a dira in this world through their activities. But then there is the level of Sholom Rov Laohvi, because the Talmidei Chachomim, the Banoim, they brought this level of Ein Sof, the Sholem, the Dira B'tachtonim in the world. So that also, the Pasuk continues there, that Sholem Rov Laohvi, that they get also part of that level that they were Mamshech Ches. V'hinei mikivon she'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekapeach schar kol berya, since the Eibishter HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not take away the reward of every creation. Everybody gets for what they've accomplished. The Eibishter does not take away from their schar. So, which means that the tzaddikim, the Talmidei Chachomim, that brought down the level of from V'chol Banayich Limuda Hashem V'Rav Shloim Banoich, they brought down the Sholem. They also going to get rewarded for it. L'chein, therefore, Ribu HaSholem Shenase Ba'olam Ayidei HaTalmidei Chachomim, this great level of Sholem that took place in the world through the Talmidei Chachomim, Nimshach Gam La Talmidei Chachomim Atzmim. This extends also to the Talmidei Chachomim themselves. Hainu, and that is Shahanachas Ruach Leboider, this pleasantness of spirit that we did for the Eibishter. Mizeh, the Eibishter has an Achas Ruach. Mizeh Shenase Lo Yizbarech Dira B'tachtonim, from the fact that it was made for him blessed. There's a dwelling place B'tachtonim. So for that Nachas Ruach Nizgal Lehat Talmidei Chachomim She'osu Es Hadira, that will be revealed to the Talmidei Chachomim that made the Dira. They get that level of what they brought about, the level of Sholem that they brought to the world. They're going to get it because they are the one that brought it into the world. And that Gilui Zehu L'maylo Mischar Ma'aschar De'elam Habo Kosho Moishu Metzad Atzmei. That revelation and a reward for making the world a Dira B'tachtonim, and the revelation that the Talmidei Chachomim get because they accomplish that is more, is greater, is above than the Schar El Mabo as it is on its own. The Elam Shaschar, the Elam Habo Mitzad Atzmei, Schar available on its own, Hu B'chinas Nachas Ruach the Hanivra. That's the level of Nachas Ruach of a created being. Shebe'ein Areich Legabe HaNachas Ruach the Habayda, which has no comparison to the Nachas Ruach of the Creator. Shalochem. For that reason, because we're saying that Olam Habo on its own is it's a limited level of Nachas Ruach. If we don't get the Nachas Ruach or the Gilui of the Avodah that we brought into the world, just Olam Habo in itself is limited. And that's why this world, Shalochem, therefore, Yof Achas, again, Shaschar Del Mabo Mitzad Atzmei, Ubchinas Nachas Ruach Danivra. That's a Nachas Ruach of the created being. That's of Nivroim, shebe'ein aroich l'gaba nachas ruach da Beire, which has no comparison to the nachas ruach of the Beire, which we get because we made a dira b'tachtonim. Shalochein, because it's limited elam habo by itself. That's why we say yofesh ha'achas b'tshuva u'maisim tovim. That's why we say yofesh ha'achas b'tshuva u'maisim tovim. Because in Olam Haba is Nivroim. It's Nachas Ruach, it's a schar of Nivroim. But in this Olam Hazeh, Olam Haba, which is schar mitzvah, the Olam Haba, which is the schar of the mitzvah, who Nachas Ruach de Hanivra. Before we get the level of Banoim, but the mitzvah alone is Nachas Ruach de Hanivra, which has no comparison to the Nachas Ruach of the Beira, which we get Shuva Maisim Tevim, which is a much higher level. Elo. So, the Shuva Maisim Tevim Beilam Hazeh gives the Eberster Nachas Ruach is much greater than the Nachas Ruach that the person has in Olam Haba, which is a reward for the mitzvah itself. Only because the Eberster does not take away the reward of those who brought Hashem that great Nachas Ruach, they get it too. Since the Eberster does not take away the reward of any creations, so therefore the tzaddikim that did the nachas ruach for the Creator, kam bechinas nachas ruach da beide. So they get also the nachas ruach da beide. The nachas ruach of the beide, where he gets Shuv Maisim Tevim, is much greater than the nachas ruach that a nivra can get, and therefore the schar mitzvah is yofesh ha'achas b'tshuva Maisim Tevim from the Olam Haba, because Tshuva Maisim Tovim is Nachas Ruach of the Beire. However, the Tzaddikim, because they bring about that Nachas Ruach, they end up getting that Nachas Ruach itself. How could Tzaddikim get that level of Nachas Ruach of the Beire, which is Shaloi Berach? Amram Bichdei Sheyuchlu Lekabel B'chinas Nachas Ruach Zeh She'einom Berkom. In order for them to be able to receive that Nachas Ruach, which is not at their compared, not in their level at all. Here we're talking about the Nachas Ruach, which is considered the essence of the light, of Hashem's essence, blessed essence. There is no defining at all. So how could that be to a nivra? That's why you need to be totally subjugated. When you're subjugated, then you're no longer a gather, you're no longer a Metzias. Then your Metzias becomes the Metzias of the Eibishter. So therefore you are not lowering or defining or bringing down that level of Nachas Ruach, that level of Tainug Atzmi, because you yourself are not an entity and you become connected. That is the Tainug of the Eibishter, and what you feel, you're no you anymore. They are not a Metzias for themselves, so it's not shaykhs to say that the Tainug of the Eibishter comes to the Nivra. There's no Nivra over here. Similar to the saying of our sages, Man Pnei Ha'odin Havaya Dorashbi, coming to visit Hashem in the Sholosh Regolim, Liras Pnei Ha'odin. So it says in the sages tells, who is this master? Goes on the Eibishter, it's Dorav Shim Bar Yochai. That goes to Rav Shim Bar Yochai. How could you say Rav Shim Bar Yochai that this is Odin Havaya? The pshat is that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai is a tachlis habitl, so it's not Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, it's the Eibishter, which is his mitzias now, because he's a bitl betachlis, a non-mitzias in front of the Eibishter. So that's Pnei Odin Havaya, that's Havaya, because he's bottled to Havaya. Or the other statement that says, Havaya be'echel kotshei, the Reb Yitzchok ben Reb Lozer, beknishte mit rosh dikison. That Hashem is in his holy abode. What does that refer to? That Yitzchak ben Reb Lozer, when he was in the shul, in the study hall in Kisirit. How could we say this is Hashem over there? And the answer is the bittul of Rabbi Yitzchak ben Reb Lozer was so great that he was a non-entity. So what you came over there was the Eibishter, was Hashem Bechel Koche. This is the idea, to be bittul betachlis, for you to be able to get the Tainug Atzmi. That way they can receive that delight and the pleasure of the Boida when they're not an entity, because they're no more nivra, they become bottle, there's only Boida. Because the Tainug of the Boida is their Tainug. They're not separate from the Boida. This is similar to a slave. Since he is a non-entity for himself, and all of his entity is the entity of the Odin. So therefore, since he's a non-entity, Tainug Odin or Tainug Evet. So the Tainug, the pleasure, the delight of the master becomes his delight. So he gets it because he is no different. He is subjugated, and the Tainug of the master is his Tainug. And that's why this is Rashbi Man Pnei Odin, this is Hashem Bechel Koche, and this is what's necessary for a Nivra to be able to get the Tainug HaBoida, is to be a non-Mitzias. So, V'zeu Sholom Rov Laohvi Seresecha. And that's why we say Sholom Rov Davke, those who love Teresecha, Laohvi Seresecha Davke. Not Lemdei and not, but those who loved her. Because Ki HaKeli L'Sholom Rov, to get the Kelim for this great peace, which would be Nachas Ruch D'Aboida, Ubitl B'Tachlis Kenal, that is only through the total subjugation, I said before. Inyan Oyave Seresecha. That is loving the Torah, meaning loving the Noisan HaTorah, which is the level of Bitl, which comes through the level of Avodas HaTfilah and the Giyah and level of Bitl. She'esek HaTorah Shalahem. What does it mean? So why are they learning Torah? Their occupation. And also their observance of mitzvahs. It's not to receive reward, pay. They wish nothing for themselves. The entire service in Torah mitzvahs is because they love Hashem. Not even to satisfy themselves. They're just doing it for Hashem. They're subjugated, and they want to bring down Hashem into the world. It's like Avram Avinu worked only out of love, not to benefit, not to gain anything. So how is that possible, to have that level of bittul, to work, become loving the Eibishter, the Teresecha Me'ava? Zenasa is Advedas HaTfilah. That becomes through the service of davening. Kibevur Le'il Siv Beis Ma'Mamer Divra Maschil Sholom Rov Toshim Dalad, as explained earlier in Siv Beis of the Mamer Divra Maschil Sholom Rov. She'inyan Oyeve Seresecha Hu, that when you have the level of loving Torah, Kshalimud HaTorah, when the study of Torah comes after the introduction, first davening, gets to the level of bittul, then it becomes Oyeve Seresecha. But this Oyeve Seresecha comes after the previous, that B'raf Shleim B'noich, to make the world. And as a reward, they get the Sholom Rov Laohvi Seresecha through the level of bittul, the tainug of the Odin becomes their tainug, the tainug of the Atzmus, tainug Atzma becomes their tainug. Kitfila Uinyan Abitl. It comes through davening, davening is bittul kinal simdalat. Velochein, and therefore Aidei Avodas Hatfila, through the service of davening, boim lebitl zeh. That's how you come and reach this level of bittul. She'einei shumitziz la'atzmai, he is not an entity for himself. B'chol mitziusei hu ha'odin, his entire entity is the master. So over here, in order, so the avodah is to bring down godliness into the world. As a reward, the person gets also the experience level of atzmus by himself, which is more than the level of the schar mitzvah by itself, because Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekapeyach, because you brought down atzmus in the world, you get to experience atzmus. But how could you experience atzmus for yourself? That you need ohev seresecha, that you need to love to have the level of bittul. That's the only way the nivra can get the level of the boira. וזהו גם כן הטעם שבפוסק ורב שלום בנויך לנאמר אוהבי סרסך עבודת התפילה. In the posuk, when we're talking about the Rav Shloim Banoich that they're building and be mamshich in the world, over there it doesn't say Ohev Seresecha Avodas HaTfilah, because essentially in the world you don't need the level of Ohev Seresecha to accomplish. Only to get the level within yourself, you need to be Ohev Seresecha level of bittul. Ki b'negei elam shochas hasholem ba'olam, because as it pertains to drawing down shalom in the world, Inyan Boinoich is Kibibinyan Shel Olam, the level of Boinoich, which deals with building the world. How do you do? So it's known, Take, you don't need that level, that level of Ava. Shagam B'li Avodas Hatfilah, even without davening. Ba'ad Shekshchoser B'Hashlemus Yerushalayim. Even if it's lacking in the complete Yerushalayim the way it should be, Efshel lekavin halacha lamitoso. So you are able to have directing the halacha, the truth of it, while yidei shepoiskim psak din amite. So if you know the halacha and you make a ruling, and kasher v'kolshkin kasher reisim ma'aseh bepoila piem psak din, and then you act. If you do an act based on the ruling, so the ruling is something which is bringing down Torah, the law, into the world. Especially if you do an action, meaning that you brought that Torah into the world. Nimshach Rav Sholom Ba'olam. So already you get the level of Rav Sholom Ba'olam. Aval bichdei sheyumshach zeh lidatz, to bring in the world. Aval bichdei sheyumshach zeh latamidei chachomim atzmo. But in order to get it to Talmidei Chachomim itself, that can only take place. Talmidei Chacham need to be a keli. Cannot be getting that level without being ohev seresecha. That's why you need the tefillah, because the tefillah brings the level of bittul. The bittul allows for that gilui of the beira to be in the nivra. But in the world, we don't need that. Even if it's lacking, still can bring down the level of sholom, of Rav Sholom. But to bring down in by himself to the person, over there we need to be ohev seresecha. Yes. So the Rebbe explained that the keli for the Talmidei Chachomim to get the reward, because they brought down the level of Atzmos into the world, is that they also get that level. But how could a Nivra receive the level of the Boyer? That comes through Bittel, by the Eved, the Bittel of an Eved, and therefore you need the Oyevet Teresecha, you need the Hachonas of Avedas Atfilah, and that way you become a keli, and then later on you can get the gilui of atzmus by the nivra. The Rebbe is going to add now that we also need, in addition to the avodas eved, we also need avodas ben. Yesh loymar, we can say shehab keli la gilu de nachas ruach leboire, that the vehicle, the vessel for the revelation of this nachas ruach to the boire, which is through the Yofashach, B'tshuva Maisim Tovim B'olam Hazeh, through the Tshuva Maisim of this world, and so what does the person get? How does he get that nachas ruach? Is through his level, is loirak havodah the b'chinas eved, not just through the level of an eved, elogam havodah the b'chinas ben, but also the avodah in level ben. Now, why should we say that? Because B'chlal, Yidden are not just an Eved. Yidden are really Ben. Befratchi Nyonim Shel Neshamas Yisrael, who beikar, mainly, what are Neshamas Yisrael? Bonim Atem Lavai Lekechem. Yes, we're also Eved. So we can't say that it's only the level of Bitl of an Eved, which is going to get us the level of Nachas Ruach from the Boire to the Nivra, but it also has to be the main aspect of the Shamas Yisrael, which is Bonim. Kibur B'Tanya is explained in Tanya. V'zehu shahaposik Sholom Rov Lo'evi Sirisecho bo behemshech liverav Sholom Baruch. That's why the posik Sholom Rov Lo'evi Sirisecho is a follow-up, is a continuation of Rav Shloim Banoich. The Rav Shloim Banoich is your children, the level of Ben. Hainu shehu schar libanoich, that this is a schar for sons, for banoich. Al avidosam shemarbim sholim ba'olam, because of their avodah, that they bring sholim ba'olam. Banoich, as he said before, bringing down the betachtonim. So in order for that reward for them to get, not being mekaper the schar, so it says clearly that it comes to the banoich, so there's level of ben. B'chinas bonim. We say al tikra banoich alo boinoich. Pagam sha'omru, even though they say al tikra banoich alo boinoich, how do you do a klal? But it's known the rule. Whenever it says al tikri, it doesn't negate the original, but it's an addition. Balimud al tikri, that the rule is when you say al tikri, she'enoi shoylel hapirush hanikra, it does not negate the one that is read. We're just saying elamoisiv oid pirush. You had additional explanation. Then move on. So from this we understand Shaschar de Sholom Rov, the schar of Sholom Rov Shuanachas Ruach the Beire Canal, which is the Nachnu the Beire, Ugam the Bonoich Kibshute B'Chinas Bonim, that is to Bonoich the level of Ben, not necessarily because it's Avodah Sa'eved, but also as a son they get this level. How so? Yud. So the Yuvon Zebahagdi Mashemavai Rabbeinu Hazokim. Explain this, what the Alter Rebbe explains, the Baal HaGeula Yutus Kislev. The Baal HaGeula Yutus Kislev, and as said before, that the Rebbe brings down the notice that it was in Parshas Vayeshev on Tuesday. That was when the redemption came. So this Parsha, the Rebbe is going to bring down from Vayeshev, and the Rebbe said this Mamer was in Motzi Shabbos Parshas Vayeshev. So there's a connection over there. So what does the Alter Rebbe explain? That B'toyro Divra Mas Vayeshev Yaakov Beretz Megurei Aviv. So he explains B'inyan HaHefresh Bein Torah LeMitzvos. The difference between Torah and mitzvahs. So B'kiyum HaMitzvos, that mitzvahs is an eved, Torah is a ben. So B'kiyum HaMitzvos Ha'odem HaMekayim as a mitzvah, the person who fulfills the mitzvahs, he's like a slave. As like the servant who fulfills the command of the king, and he does what the king asks of him. Hello? No problem, no problem. So mitzvahs is like fulfilling the command of the king, and Torah is the king yourself. You're the king. Mamshich Shom, so the Alter Rebbe is Mamshich in the Mamer in Torah. On Vayeshev Shazo, Mashikosu, Vayeshev Yaakov Beretz Megurei Aviv. Yaakov settled the land Megurei Aviv. Megurei means fear. Uloshin Yira. Megurei Aviv means the fear with his father, fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's Loshin of Yira, V'gam Loshin Oitzer, and also language of a storage with awe. K'moy Megura Maleya Pedis. The word Megure is like we use a storage full of fruit. Shukeli Sha'oitzerim L'toichai, that's a vessel in which you gather into it. Ushnei Oilim Bekona Echad, both of this interpretation, whether it means fear or it means storage, really, they both go up in one pipe, one stick. They're both join. It's really the same thing. Kamosha Kosu, Yiras Hashem, Hi Eitzrei. The fear of Hashem is his storage, means he owns, and what he has is fear of Hashem. So to translate the word megure meaning storage, or to translate megure meaning fear, is really the same thing. It's the fear of Hashem that we're talking about. Also, we find it in the words of the sages. It's called an oitzar shel yiras shamayim, a storage of fear of heaven. So, and those are the two meanings in Megure Aviv. Upirush zeh ksovei harav hamagid, and that interpretation of the idea that it means an oitzer is written by the Maggid of Mezrich. The Maggid of Mezrich is also connected to Yutas Kisla because that's his yahrzeit. Be'er Torah, Shemegure Aviv, he writes over there, he yiras Aviv Shabashamayim. So Yeshu settled with the Megure Aviv, with the fear of heaven, of Hashem. Yiras Aviv Shabashamayim, the fear of heaven of Hashem. Ubehemshech Ha'inyan Shom, and over there in the continuation, Megure Loshen Asifa B'Knisa, that it means to gather in and to bring in K'moy Oiger Bakayitz, like he find the Loshen that he gathers in the dried figs. So in any event, brings down these two, by the Maggid brings down the two Pirushim, that it means Yiras Aviv Shabashamayim, and also that it is meaning an oitzer, storage, a gathering in. So what does it mean, Megure Aviv? Pirush Megure Aviv. And what does it mean, the storage of Megure Aviv? Shahabitl the Yira, Befrat Habitl the Yira law, that subjugation you get out of awe of Hashem, especially subjugation of the higher level of awe, who klei kibul oitzer, that becomes the vehicle of the receptacle, that oitzer to storage la gilui chochmei law, to the revelation of the supreme chochmah, which is the level called Aviv. Chochmei law nikra Aviv, that's called Aviv. So Megure, the storage in which you bring down the level of Chochmah, that through Yiras Shamayim, through the level of Megure Aviv, the middle of Yira, and the higher level of Yira, you become Megure Aviv, you get a level of Chochma Ilah, which is called Abba, Chochma Abba Kanal. The Kshe'esek HaTorah Hu Bebittel, that when the Torah's learning is done in a way of self-effacement, Azai ve'osim dvorai beficha, then my words are in your mouth. Shedvar havaya zu halacha, he hamedaberes b'ter gerene, that it speaks, Hashem is speaking from you. So it's not the person speaking, but it's the Eibishter, Hashem, the halacha is speaking from the gerene, is the psak din, and that comes when there is the level is megure, to storage, to bring down the aviv through the level of yira. So that's the connection. The yira and the oitzer and the yira shamayim brings down the chochmah law, and that is the level of Torah b'bittel, in which the Eibishter sort of speaks in the person because he's a non-entity. Yudal, Behine, Ma'abir v'Torah Shabitl Yira Shel Keli L'Chochma Ilah Nikra Megure Aviv. That this explanation, that when you have that level of subjugation of Yira, that becomes the vehicle, the vessel for Chochma Ilah, and it's called Megure Aviv because it is the Keli for Aviv Chochma Ilah. I knew Sha'Kodesh Baruch Hu Nikra Kan. So it's not an eved to a master, but ki im av. This is called like a father. Rebbe wants to bring the point that also the avodas av naben keloshin harava magid, as the magid loshin is shemegure aviv yiras aviv shabashamayim. That is the Father in heaven. That's the level. So we're talking about the Eibishter as a father. We're also talking about the father as Chochmei Law. But we see that this is all about the level of a Ben and an Aviv. So from this I understand Shebitl Zehu Loi HaBitl de Eved. That this bitl that we're talking is not the bitl of Eved. Ki'im habitl de ben. We're talking about the bitl of the ben. Va'idei bitl zed de ben, through this bitl of a son. Var havayezu hi halacha hi hanigdis boy v'hamedaberes v'tachreine. Then the word of Hashem is what speaks and reveals that is what talks through him, through his throat. So it's dafke the level of ben. Ki behavoida the bechinas ben efsher liyes bitla mitis betachlis, because in the service of a son there is possible to be that true level of bitl totally, that is not a entity by himself. The whole mitziusoi umitziasav, and his entire entity is the entity of the Father. So what the Rebbe is saying here, not only by the level of Eved, the bitl, of Yira, of Eved, can you reach the level of true bitl, but here we're saying even at the level of Ben, to have the Dvar Havayim is speaking to Groin is a level of Ben, because that too can bring you about the level of bitl of Ben, that you're not a Metzias for yourself and you're tired Metzias Ab. It doesn't have to be the bitl of an Eved, it can be the bitl of a Ben. And the Rebbe further says that in a way, the bitl of Ben is even greater. And the Rebbe continues. But first the Rebbe says, as I explained, Zesha Nishomis Nikroi Bonim, Ein Ze Kemoi Beben Lamato. The Shamas are called Bonim, it's not like a son below, She'im Hayosa Nilkach B'Moicha, even though he comes from the moyach, the brain of the father, he's still separate from his father. So he comes, but he's separated. Achakach, Shalom. And therefore, the halacha is avedase v'avedas aviv, avedase kademis. If you have a lost object and your father lost something, you must first return and give back the lost, or go after the lost object that your father lost. Why is that? Because still you're separated, you're still a separate entity, and you take precedent for that. So, but that's not the way. That's the way it's over here below. But by the Eibishter, it's not like that. It's didn't separate. The neshama is one with the father, and she does not separate from the Eibishter at all. It was not like Ben Ovir. So you have this tremendous level of bittul by the level of Ben. Not only do you also have the level of bittul by the level of Ben, the Rebbe continues, but it's even more, that the bittul of the Ben is even greater than the bittul of the Ebed. And more than that, as we said before from Torah, when you learn Torah with bittul, you're not like a servant who fulfills the command of the king. You're the king himself. So that's a greater level of bittul. You're not bottled to do what the master tells you, but you become the master. You're not separate. So now the Rebbe sums it up. Yud Beis. V'zeu v'chol b'nayich l'muda Hashem v'rak v'shloim b'noyich. I'll take it up b'noyich ala b'noyich. So first we say the Sholom to Ben, and then that built U'mamshich Sholom Rov Laohvi Seresecho. And then the pasuk continues this great piece Laohvi Seresecho. Sha'avodas hatalmidei chachomim hanikroim bonim. The avodas of the chachomim they refer to bonim bonoich. He Hikipirush Rabba Magid al Apostle Vayeshev Yaakov Beres Megure Aviv is as the Magid translates on Vayeshev Yaakov Megure Aviv. Shehu inyan ha'avoda the bechinas bonim kinal. That's the avoda of the level of bonim, because he says, as the Rebbe quoted before, that the Magid says it's megure aviv, meaning that it's a level yiras aviv sheva shemayim. So therefore, we're talking about a ben, level of ben. So inyan ha'avodah the b'chinas bonim kinal leger v'lesef ha'nitzotzos ha'kadoshim u'la'achnisam u'la'aloisam le'ela, quoting from the Magid of Mezrich, megure, to store, to collect, and to gather the holy sparks, to bring them in and to elevate them to above. Okay, that is Be'eretz Megure. The Rebbe adds also Canaan, Be'eretz Megure, then it says Be'eretz Canaan. So Gamki Mashanav Shem Bekosu Be'eretz Canaan. Also, the pasuk continued in land of Canaan, Canaan Loshen Soichet. That means it becomes a businessman, because it's a business. The ultimate goal of the descent of the neshama below is to purchase the merchandise and the acquisition specifically in this world. That's why coming down in this world is what we can accomplish and make Torah mitzvah dir b'tachtonim idea nitzotzos shemevareres. So she acquires it by sorting out the nitzotzos. This also fits the continuation of the parsha about the dreams that Yosef had. We were making these bundles from the sorting out of the nitzotzos. So al koponim, Though this is the avodah of L'chol Banayich, Lemud Hashem Rav Shloim Banoich, the avodah of the Bonim, the avodah of the Ben, to collect and all these netzutzes. Vayeshev, Vayeshev Yaakov. And that brings around the settlement of Yaakov. As we said, Bikesh Yaakov Leishev B'Shalva. Yeshiv Yaakov relaxed the Inyan HaSholem. And this was Vayeshev, meaning Vayeshev the Inyan HaSholem through Megure Ovid. Hein HaSholem Ba'olam K'Mamer Azal. Whether it's Sholem in the world, as the Chazals tell us, Talmidei Chachamim Marbim Sholem Ba'olam, they add Sholem in the world. Ve'hein Sholem Le Talmidei Chachamim Atzmam, also Sholem to the Talmid Chacham himself, to bring Sholem into the world and to the Talmid Chacham himself. Kamesha Mamshich, like he says, Sholem Rov, Laohvi Seresecho. Sholem Rov to Laohvi Seresecho. Meaning that it comes, the Laohvi Seresecho get the level of Sholem, as the Rebbe spoke before. It's Nimshach to the Laohvi, to the Talmid Chacham himself. Kekivon Talmid Chachamim Hanikroim Bonim. Since Talmid Chachamim who are referred to as Bonim over here, Shlav Shlem Bonoich, and Betachas Abitl Kanal, Lochein habechinas anachas ruach the haboida. So therefore, the level of the pleasure of the Creator of Hashem, mizeh shemarbim sholem ba'olam, that they are making the shalom in the world, increasing the shalom in the world, nimshach gam la talmidei chachamim atzmim, it comes to them too, as the Rebbe talked earlier, in HaKadosh Baruch mekapeach, they bring it into the world, and they get that nachas ruach of the Eibishter into their lives, into the lives of the tzaddikim, talmidei chachamim. V'zau shalom rov, la'ohvi seresecha. That's why they get the greatest level of shalom, is ohevi seresecha, sha'yidei sha'avedosam b'toira mitzvahim, when their service of Torah mitzvahs is lebichdei lekabel schar, not to get reward, elu mitzadavas Hashem, but because of the love of Hashem, las is nachas ruach lebeira, to give a nachas ruach to their Creator, to Hashem. V'yodim shaschar shalahem, and they know that their schar is not nachas ruach hanivrahu, it's the pleasure and the delight of the nivra is ubein arech lanachas ruach debeira. It's no comparison. So they're not doing it for themselves. That's not, they're doing nachas ruach for Hashem. In our day bittul zeh, through this subjugation, nimshach lahem hagilui begilu hanachas ruach v'atayim debeira. They get openly the nachas ruach and the tainug of the beira. The kivon she'enu mitzias latzmon klal, since they are not an entity for them at all, hara tainug the haboire hu tainug shalahem. So the tainug of the Creator becomes their tainug, and that is the highest level, and that is the level of Sholom Rov.
Hello.